Hi guys, I'm Kendra. I'm the Executive Director at St. Anthony's Hospice. St. Anthony's Hospice serves end-of-life patients in Webster Union and Henderson County.
Hey guys, my name's Kelly Holleran. I'm the Business Development Manager for St. Anthony's.
Mm-hmm. So today is the first time that we've done anything like this before, and we hope it's the first of many. So this is our attempt to help you all understand more about hospice and palliative care and the services that we provide in our community. And so we're hopeful that we can do this a few times a month and get it out, and we're hopeful that we can bring some thought leaders and clinicians and staff members that we have on our team and begin interviewing them so that we can be a resource for our community as we're providing that care for everyone here in Henderson, Union, and Webster counties. Yeah. So tell us about November being Hospice and Palliative Care Month.
So in November, it's Hospice and Palliative Care Month. There are lots of things within that. The main goal for National Hospice and Palliative Care Month is to educate community on what hospice is, what palliative is, what we do. And so that's kind of why we wanted to pilot this in November. So it can kind of go along with everything. So we have a lot of things going on Facebook. We have lots of social media things. So we're going to put that out there, see what we've got going.
Mm-hmm. And we thought it would be a really good idea to really talk today about former President Jimmy Carter. And it's been really cool to watch his journey in hospice care. And we love it because he's been an advocate even for places in Henderson, Kentucky. So former President Jimmy Carter was admitted into hospice care 9 months ago. His family says that he has a terminal diagnosis of metastatic cancer. And so when they chose hospice services, they were electing not to treat or treat for that metastatic cancer anymore. So they were electing not to do curative treatment anymore. And so that's basically what qualifies somebody for hospice care. And the really nice thing about the articles that we're reading about President Carter is a myth would be that once you enter hospice care that you would pass away in a few days. Well, he's been alive and thriving for the last 9 months. Living his best life.
Living his best life.
Yeah, and we love that idea because that's one of the things that we're able to provide the families and the patients that we're serving.
Yeah, he was actually in the Peanut Festival. And
in the parade. Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, he's our champion for hospice because, I mean, he's out there doing that and he is terminally ill. So, you know, a lot of people picture hospice and they just picture laying in the bed and, you know, just sadness. And it's not, it doesn't have to be that way. So, yeah, he is just thriving. And cancer is one of those things that people typically think that once treatment is stopped, then it's not long, and that's not always the case. So we just love President Carter and his mission. I think so
to
help hospice.
So he's 99.
Yeah,
you know, and we see him in these on the news and in reports of him with his sweetie pie in the Peanut Festival, being with the people that he loves, like doing the things that he wants to do. And not being in the hospital connected to, you know, machines and lines and all of those things. And so, you know, when you think about the length of stay that he's had with hospice, there's actually studies to support that. So, you know, oftentimes people think that you have to give up the time of life that you have left in order to have a high quality of life at the end of life. But the studies suggest that it's actually just the opposite. So there's studies that show once you elect hospice, that you actually live longer with hospice care than you do without. And one of those reasons specifically with metastatic cancer is the way that treatment looks. And if you have a chance that to have a cure to your metastatic cancer, then that's the direction that you want to go. But oftentimes there's a point inside of that disease where we realize that chemotherapy and radiation is futile, which means it's not going to do a lot of good. It's actually going to be harder on the body to get that treatment than not. And so I feel like, based on the experience that we've had with our patients, that President Carter elected not to undergo that treatment anymore, and his body is not having all that chemo inside of him,
Right.
and so he's feeling better. So he's getting a chance to live his best life until he passes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and what I always tell people is, you know, when you're born, you go to an OBGYN. When you're a child, you go to a pediatrician. When you're an adult, you have a primary care physician, and so on. And so when you're at end of life, hospice is just another level of care.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same as going to a podiatrist for your feet. They're an expert on your feet. A dentist is an expert on your teeth. Hospice, we're expert at terminal illnesses, death and dying.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that D word and that H
Mm-hmm.
word, you know, death and hospice, it's hard for people to even say. So we want to help people understand that doesn't have to always be so scary.
So taking that stigma away from hospice and death, because we're all at some point going to die.
Right.
And so the goal, the mission that we have at St. Anthony's Hospice is to help provide a gentle death and a high quality of life before that happens.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. So we're excited. And I think as we continue on during this series, we hope that you all will join us.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you're a caregiver that maybe you're taking care of your mom or your spouse or a loved one, or if you've been diagnosed with a terminal diagnosis, we want to be able to bring you all resources to help you provide that care, because it's hard. I mean, if you've never been a caregiver before, it's a lot of work.
Yes.
You're doing things that you've never done before, but we've got a team that are knowledge experts in all of those things. And so we're here to help, and we are hopeful to provide some of that information to you.
We want to help you be a loved one, a daughter, a son, a granddaughter, sister, brother, whatever, instead of having to be that caregiver 24/7. We want to come in and help you have those moments of just being a daughter, just being a son, whatever it is. And that's what our goal is. We just want to help the community.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what we do best. So one of the reasons, let me ask you this, what made you want to come to work for St. Anthony's, Kelly?
So in college, I took a class, Services to Older Americans. And in that class, a nurse from the hospice organization that was in that area came and talked to us. Mm-hmm. And from that moment, I was like, hospice is what I want to do.
Really?
It was just something that came over me, and I was like,
it was just like
hospice.
that. It was a quick decision.
Yeah. I was like, okay, it's hospice. So when I started to do my internship, I had to put down 3 places that I wanted to go. And I put down the 3 hospice organizations that were in my area there where I was at college. And I remember the professor, whatever she was like, you don't want to do anything else? And I was like, no. I said, I want to do hospice.
Was she trying to talk you out of it?
Yeah. Well, she said, but you only gave hospice options. And I was like, I know. And she said, are you sure? And I was like, yes, sign me up.
How old were you then, you think?
23, 24. Maybe.
Oh, you were, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe not even that old. Probably about 23. And I said, yeah, that's what I want to do. And she said, okie dokie then. And so she signed me up, and I did an internship with 2 different hospice organizations and loved it, was gung-ho, got hired on at a hospice organization when I lived in a different location. And so when I moved here, you all weren't hiring at the time. So I took another job for a little bit.
Because you're trained you're a licensed social worker.
Yes, licensed social worker. So I took a different job at another organization here in Henderson. And then I remember you called me up, we had met, and you called me up and you were like, hey, what you doing? And, was like, hey, why don't you come interview? And I was like, yes, let's do it. Let's go. So I've been here ever since.
Yeah. And so you started as a social worker in our palliative care program. Yeah. And so, that was really a cool thing for me to watch as a team member, because you have kind of went through the ranks. So you've worked in social work, and then you worked inside of our admissions office. So you were there helping individuals as they were coming on service.
So if you had a patient in the past couple of years that has called in our office, probably heard me on the phone. I was probably the intake person. And so then when the marketing position became available, I was like,
yeah,
let's do it.
And you're doing a great job. What's one of the things that you struggle with most about telling people about hospice care? Like, what's that obstacle that you get into when you're in conversation about hospice?
The first thing that anybody ever says to me is, I hope I don't have to see you. I hope I don't ever have to use you. And I always correct them, and I always say, I hope you don't have to use me anytime soon. But I hope that we're able to care for you in the future. And they always, it always makes them think like, oh, maybe I don't need to say that, because it's not that, like, they always start out with, oh, we love St. Anthony's. It's so great. It's wonderful. And then but I hope I don't ever have to see you. And I'm like, you're probably gonna one day. And I hope that we're able to serve you. So it's really just breaking those barriers and, just getting people to understand. We're not bad. We're not bad people.
Don't you find that the comments that you receive from caregivers and loved ones after a patient's death, I feel like I often hear, man, I wish we had called you all earlier. Like, I didn't realize the services that St. Anthony's could provide.
I mean, I've had family members under St. Anthony's, and it's my husband's family, and all of them have said, oh, we knew that you worked for hospice, but like, we didn't realize this is what you do. Until they were in it and saw it. And so
I had that experience last year. We took care of my mom here. We're at the care center, Lucy Smith King Care Center right now, and my mom had metastatic pancreatic cancer, and I've worked here for 12 years, and I knew the care that we provide. I know that deep in my heart, but it wasn't really until we took care of my mom that I experienced the magic of what the team here has to offer. Mom was in a lot of pain when we brought her here. She was at the end of her life. She lived here the last week of her life. And as a daughter, it's really hard to see, your favorite person in the world hurting and restless and fearful. And, she'd been in the hospital for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so our family was really, really tired. And so when we brought her here, it's like I came and it was just a fear or a feeling of relief when I walked into the store, because I knew that mom would be well cared for, but I would too. This place gave me a chance to spend some really good quality time with mom the last few days of her life. Like, I had some conversations with her that I hadn't been able to have, and just time, and that at that time we knew that her life was pretty limited and we didn't have a lot of time left with her. And so it was nice to have that quality time to say the things and have the conversations that we wanted to have with her. So it's definitely a different experience coming at it as a family member versus a team member for St. Anthony's.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about coming and being able to have a conversation. We've got Kelly and I are going to be on here. We've got some students from Henderson County High School that are helping us with the production and all things tech. I hope you all will come back, and we just want to be a really great resource for you, because if you're watching this, you will be a caregiver at one time or another. And so St. Anthony's is here to help with all of those things. I think some things that you can expect to see in the future, 100% is our team, because our team are knowledge experts on end-of-life care. So we have physicians, nurses, aides, social workers, chaplains.
We want to introduce you to those people that are in the community serving already, and you put a face with a name so you can see some of our people hard at work.
But we also want to get really granular, or granular, I should say. We also want to get very granular in the type of care that we're providing and how to do that care. As an example, something that's very common for our aides to provide are, personal care. So how do you give somebody that's bedbound a bath? How do you complete an advance directive? How do you Is it important that we have durable medical equipment in the home? What type of medicine can you expect at end of life?
And what we're going to do with the medicines. A common myth is we take it away. Well, that's not the case. So, we really want to debunk some myths, really dive deep into what a nurse does, because we can sit here and talk all day about what a nurse does, but we're not nurses. Right. So get one of our nurses in here, get their perspective. So some things like that is kind of what you can expect upcoming.
End of life care is very different than being a staff nurse or on the hospital floor. So everything that we're doing for the patients that we care for, our plan of care is comfort. Every decision that we make for that patient, every decision that we make for that family is making sure they're as comfortable and happy and content as possible. And that's a lot different than what an RN would experience on the hospital floor, because their plan of care is treatment. So everything that they're doing is saving and making that life live longer. We're not going to hasten death, but we are here to make sure that comfort is possible, and it is possible. It's just you've got to have the skill set to be able to do that.
For sure.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to interviewing some of these team members, because we have right at 80 team members inside of St. Anthony's Hospice, and each of them are different. But they all have really cool stories to tell about individuals that they've served. We're not going to give any type of patient information. We're very serious about patient privacy. But that's one of the reasons that I work for St. Anthony's Hospice, is because when I was on the board of directors, and Mark Chumbler was the executive director, and he kept on saying, anytime you want to come work for us, you just let me know. And I was in a marketing capacity for another company, and so I finally was like, okay, I'm going to come. But it took me a minute to make that decision. But I can remember having a conversation with several different community members and also several team members with St. Anthony's. And it was really hard for them to talk about the services that we provide without getting emotional about it. And that was really the time that I thought, this is the kind of place that I want to be. I want to go home at the end of the day knowing that I truly made a difference in somebody's life. And I think that if you were to interview the 75 to 80 employees that we have today, every one of them would say the same thing, that they're here for the mission. A paycheck is good, but that's not the only reason that they're here. That they're here because they know that there's a really big need in this community, and that's why they do it.
We're not in it for the income. We're in it for the outcome.
Well, income's always good, but that's not the whole. We're in it for the outcome, not the income. I love that. Yeah, the outcome. And so we've been here. St. Anthony's, we served our first patient in February of 1982. So we've been here for a really long time, and we're really proud to be serving St. Anthony's.
Thanks for watching our first video.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing how this goes. We're excited about getting the information out and interviewing people. And if there's anything that you all feel like, any type of information about hospice that you all want to know, reach out. We would love to be able to explore that and get the information that you need from us.